We are starting to see Western beauty brands roll out cushion foundations, and I wanted to answer the question of if these are actually comparable to the very famous, very popular Asian cushion foundations. So I have 3 new cushion foundations that we're going to be testing out today, all within 3 different price points, and I'm going to let you guys know if they're worth it, if they're good, and if I'm going to continue to use them. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, then welcome. My name is Christina, and like I said, today we're going to be playing with a lot of cushion foundations. There has been a good amount of releases recently, and I myself was really curious. So I did multiple wear test days for each one of these cushion foundations just to kind of figure out if they're going to stand up to the already existing, already really good cushion foundation options out there. So which ones are we talking about today? The Makeup Revolution cushion foundation. I love this compact. I think it's really cute. The very popular L'Oreal Infallible cushion foundation I've talked about briefly on my channel, but we're really going to deep dive into this in this video today. And now our high-end luxury option, the YSL cushion foundation. So what we're looking at in this video is the application, how easy it is to apply, how it covers, the shade of each one, because we know that the original Asian cushion foundations are notorious for having a tiny little shade range. I'm also going to be looking at how these sit on the face once applied, freshly applied, and at the end of the day. Also, because I do have oily skin, we're going to be looking at how it controls oils, and then of course an end of the day look, just overall how this was wearing, what my experience was, and kind of my takeaways at the end of the day. So if you guys are interested in seeing all that information, then let's get started. But before we get started, if you are not already, I would highly suggest and would love if you guys subscribe to my channel. I put out a ton of different showdown type of videos and really in-depth reviews. So if that's something that you like, then I think you might like my channel and my content. And also please like this video if you can, to let the algorithm know that people actually want to see this video. So first off, what is a cushion foundation? A cushion foundation is a type of foundation application that originates in South Korea and has been popularized all over Asia. And essentially what it is it's a porous sponge that is soaked in foundation, and it has this puff that you're typically supposed to use to apply it. It's really convenient for on-the-go application, for mess-free application, and also in some occasions for touch-ups. Now, while this can be looked at as kind of a different form of foundation, a really key feature in a lot of different cushion foundations is that they're typically much thinner, they're sometimes more serum-y, but overall it's a thinner texture than a traditional foundation, which allows for more of a sheer, even application that you can choose to build up. Well, actually, maybe not sheer in coverage, but like a thin, even application that tends to dry down quicker than something that, you know, if you pumped out a pump of foundation and you put it all over your skin, you can kind of go overboard if you're not careful. But of course, it all depends on the user. Typically, a cushion foundation is known to be thinner. But with that being said, they do come in all different finishes now, and with extensions to the Western makeup industry, many more shades. Although the last few years, we have seen a lot of really popular Asian brands that have cushion foundations extend their range far more than they ever have to kind of cater to people that are not super pale and not just like beige. I do want to acknowledge that everyone's taste in their foundations, how it wears, and everyone's skin type and texture is going to be different. So I'm going to share with you guys my standard and what I like in a cushion foundation. I have done a couple of videos in the past about them, so I'll link those down below for you. But essentially, my go-to cushion foundations are the Tier Red Mask Cushion Foundation and the S-Bar. This one is newer to me, but I fell in love with it immediately. So firstly, let's talk about the Tier. I have this small one and I have tried multiple different shades, and I finally was like, let me try 29C. I'm never a cool tone, but I noticed that a lot of the Tier cushion mask foundations tended to be on the warmer side. It does seem to work very well for me. In my opinion, this is a quintessential cushion foundation. This is full coverage. It's super thin in texture. You can apply it very easily with the little puff right here. I do like the texture of this puff, and not every puff is made equal, you guys. Some of them have a little bit more cushiony bounce to them, and others tend to be more flat, which I'll be talking about while I go through these. Essentially, you tap it into the sponge and then you tap it onto the little door here to get any excess off, and then you apply whatever is remaining on your puff onto your skin. That is the proper way to apply these, because you never want to go in with a heavy layer, because it is meant to be sheer and built up. That is how they sit on the skin the best. With this one, it is not meant to be set down with powder. However, you can set it down with powder. It looks beautiful. I have done it that way, but I've also worn this without setting it, because it does set down to more of, I would call it more of a satin matte finish, and I think it looks beautiful. And because of the longevity and the formula of this, it tends to last throughout the entire day against my oils, even if I don't end up powdering my skin, which is very impressive to me. There's not a lot of foundations that can do that. Even if I powder, it does not tend to bunch up or look textured anywhere. My hot spots for texture when it comes to foundations are my chin, my upper lip, and my nose and around my nose. That's typically where it'll start looking the worst, especially because in my T-zone is where I get really, really oily throughout the day, which is very typical. Now, I do live in a hot, humid climate, so I'm going to be talking about these in that sense. Now, if you live somewhere cooler, if you live somewhere drier, your experience may be different, even if you do have oily skin, so I do want to note that. This one, like I mentioned, is a newer one that I tested out while I was testing these other cushion foundations out, and oh my goodness, this knocked it out of the park for me. I'm wearing it today. I've worn it several times since I got it. I have this in the shade 28 Ginger. I just used swatch videos online to kind of figure out my shade, and luckily I did pick the perfect shade, because you guys, this is like a perfect shade match. This shade match was so great. It has a spongier, more thicker cushion puff applicator. It feels very velvety and soft, and then when you actually put it onto the skin, it does feel like it's pushing the foundation in there. I like that it has this little triangle wedge, so you can really get in if you do decide to get closer to the eyes, but also around the eyebrows. It's really nice as well. I would say that the coverage of this one is a medium leaning full coverage with one layer of the foundation, and it was sitting really, really well once blended into the skin. I did end up tapping it with like a little sponge, just because that's kind of my habit. Whenever I apply a foundation, I like to just tap a little with the sponge to make sure it's not streaky or anything. Oh, and I do really like that on this door, this part of it does have a little bit of a texture to it, so it tends to not just slip around when you put the excess foundation there. It seems to almost push it into the puff better this way. It does have a slight scent to it. It's not strong, but it does smell a little bit citrusy, so just so you know, it does have that. I would say that this has a natural finish on the skin. While this is more of a satin matte finish, this does tend to be more natural. It's not too dewy, it's not too matte. It kind of sits right there in the middle. It doesn't stay tacky. It does tend to dry down quite quickly, and that's what I'm used to with a cushion foundation, especially because you're going in with like half a layer of foundation at a time. You can build this up in some areas, like on my cheeks, I do have freckling, hyperpigmentation, so I did want to see how that did on those areas, and I was able to build it up no problem. It didn't look cakey or heavy. This also is another one that sets down really well with powder. It doesn't look cakey in those hot spot areas like my chin, my upper lip, and my nose. Like I mentioned, everything looked really, really great. And while I do produce oils with this one, it's mainly concentrated in my T-zone, but I love it because it still looks like natural skin, and although I can get sweaty or oily, it doesn't make the foundation move. My oils kind of come through and are on top of my makeup, not necessarily moving and smearing my makeup. I hope that makes sense. There are some foundations that can tend to do that, but this one does not do that. It looks great throughout the day. I've also used this once oily. I've blotted with a blotting sheet, and then it looks good as new, and it outlasts an entire like 12-hour workday for me. So I really love this. I really love this. These are like the cushion foundations that I will reach for without even thinking about. So those are my standards when it comes to a cushion foundation. I think that's kind of what I was basing my reviews and my wear tests and stuff off of, and also just kind of looking at it in terms of a foundation, but keeping in mind what a cushion foundation is supposed to do. on your skin. So when applying these cushion foundations, I try to do it in that same kind of traditional way of applying it with the puffs. I tried each one with and without powders. I tried each one with and without primers and with and without setting sprays, I'm pretty sure, just to fully get an idea of all of them. So let's get started. I think I want to start with the most talked about right now, the L'Oreal Infallible Cushion Foundation. I have this one in the shade 140 Neutral, and I originally did do a first impression in a short, so I will put that right here for you guys. I really love a cushion compact foundation, and this is going to be the very first drugstore one that I'm experiencing. This one is from L'Oreal. It's part of their Infallible line. I got the shade 140 Neutral. Here's Cushion Foundation 101. They typically come with this puff right here, and it's really important that you use this puff. This will give you the right amount of product and spread the product evenly on the skin. With a lot of them, you want to press the puff in and then dab it on this little door right here just to get the excess off and disperse it evenly on the puff, and then go in on your face and tap it in. Tapping motions are key to get really good even coverage with the cushion foundation. I like the point on the puff. It allows me to go around the eyebrows, around my nose. I still see a lot of my freckling and my hyperpigmentation. If you do have dry skin, I think prepping the skin with something that's really moisturizing is going to be key. I do really like this shade match though. I think it works out really well. It does seem to dry down really quickly, so I would suggest just working in sections. And it doesn't feel tacky, it doesn't feel greasy. It feels like it actually has started to dry down. Just finished my makeup, and I gotta say that this foundation is sitting really nicely, and it played well with a lot of my cream products. I did not powder my face down, and I always powder my face down because I am oily. I did put a cream blush on top, so that is the hydration that you're seeing right here, and I feel like it counteracts the mattifying aspects of the foundation really well, and it kind of balances it out. I am seeing that around my nose and on the tip of my nose, it's looking a little bit dry, and the foundation is starting to sink into those areas. It is sitting a little bit heavy on the skin. We'll see how this wears throughout the day. Well, not even 5 hours later, you guys, this is what the makeup was looking like. And remember, this was not set with powder at all. This is just the foundation, and it was looking cakey on my chin, my upper lip. It was separating on my nose. It just was not flattering. I was really disappointed because I was hoping that this would be a really easy way to just get foundation on the skin, but back to the drawing board, I guess. So as you guys saw, this did not really pan out the way that I wanted it to. I was already a little bit iffy about the application, or not the application, the coverage. I kind of felt like it wasn't giving me as much coverage as I anticipated for it to give me, since it is in that Infallible line. But again, I was trying to go in with one like sheer layer. I wasn't trying to put all of that foundation on my skin. So I was being mindful to push it into the cushion, tap it onto the door, and then go in and apply it to my skin. As far as the cushion, the puff goes, I feel like this is quite a flat puff, but it's not just like one thin layer, you know? Like if you push your fingers onto it, you can feel the cushioniness to it, but as you're applying it, it's almost like flat. It feels like you're kind of slapping your face, kind of. And the reason why I feel like this isn't super cushiony, super bouncy, is because it can tend to apply a little bit more streaky. And especially because this formula seems to dry down quite quickly, you want to go in and work in sections and really blend that foundation out. A trick that I like to do again is to take my sponge, so I'll blend it out as far as it'll go, and then I'll tap in and make sure that I don't have any demarcation lines from the puff. So again, the coverage, I would categorize this as being a light medium coverage. I felt like my scarring, my hyperpigmentation, my acne scars were still quite noticeable, but it wasn't terrible because I typically do rely on my concealers to cover that up anyways, but I had to go in with a little bit more concealer because this didn't give me as much coverage. And out of all three of the cushion foundations we're talking about today, I did notice that this one seemed to have the least amount of coverage. Now, talking about the application for the second day, I did try to make sure that I prepped my skin really well. And in that original short video, I did not use powder because I felt like the matte finish already was good for me and I wanted to test it standalone, you know? But someone did mention that they always powder it down because they are oily, even though it is more of a matte finish. So I decided to try that out for the second day. So I did powder my skin down. And because I did use the powder, after the full face, like freshly applied, I really did feel like my makeup looked really dry. And this is not uncommon. Sometimes when I go in with a lot of powder, it does take like maybe an hour or two for my skin to kind of settle, a little bit of my oils come through, and then it looks way more natural and much more of my preference. So I wasn't too nervous about that, but it did definitely look dry. It still didn't really give me as much coverage as I wanted on the second day, but with the powder and everything, my loose powder, my finishing powder, the chin looked fine. It looked fine with a fresh application. The upper lip looked fine. I could kind of see a little bit of texture, but it didn't look terrible. I was keeping that in the back of my mind since I knew the first day I did have trouble with those areas. Now this day was really funny, and you guys may get a little bit of a jump scare because I decided to garden in 91-degree heat. I was watering my mom's plants while she was out of town, and I was sweating, you guys. So I was like, what's a better day to test out an Infallible cushion foundation than in 91-degree heat with like 100% humidity in the middle of July, because I did film this in July. It was kind of crazy. And I think maybe because it started off more dry and more powdered or something, it didn't just like melt off my skin. Like I did have those extra shields like the powder, you know? My makeup did transfer onto the little hat that I was wearing, but overall it didn't look like it completely came off of my forehead, and the makeup looked pretty flawless aside from like the sweat that was dripping down on the sides of my face, you know. Everywhere else it like stayed put, and I was extremely shocked by this. I fully thought that I was just gonna have like sweat dripping areas and the foundation was just gonna completely like disintegrate in the heat, but surprisingly it all stayed, you guys. After I had cooled down and I was in the AC for a few hours, I ate, it still looked really good. Everything stayed in place. Granted, I did have those demarcation lines from the sweat, but overall it looked great. And at the end of the day, I had worn it for about 12 hours. It looked like it was separating on the chin slightly, but it definitely was not as bad as that first day when I wasn't wearing any powder. It did look a little cakey around the lips as well, but this was like intense wear test time. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, okay, this really withstood everything that I threw at it today, and I was very impressed. So overall, it definitely wears and looks better with powder somehow. It seems like the powder really sets the foundation down and keeps it from balling up and emphasizing texture and anything like that. I kind of want to say that it looked dry throughout the entirety of wearing it, although my sweat didn't really make it look that dry, you know what I mean? And I have worn this a handful of times since doing those wear tests, and every time it leaves something to be desired, you guys. But it's not the easiest cushion foundation to work with, and it's not my favorite application either. But I will give it its flowers and say that if I ever found myself in a situation where I was sweating my face off and I needed my makeup to stay put, stay sweat proof and a little bit transfer proof, then I may reach for this again, honestly, because it did really impress me on that front. Let's now talk about the Revolution Beauty one. Now it has been years since I have tried anything from Revolution Beauty, but I did see that this was coming out, and at the price point I just had to test it out for you guys. This one is in the shade medium neutral. If I'm remembering correctly, it's not a huge shade range, but luckily this was a really good match. Like out of the 3 cushion foundations that I tested out for this video, this was by far the best shade match. Now it does look like when I'm applying it, it is slightly warmer, but it does match my body, it does match my neck. I didn't notice it oxidizing at all. Oh, that's another thing. The L'Oreal one did not oxidize, by the way. Now it has your standard cushion compact. It has the puff right here, the little door, and then you have your cushion here. Now the cushion, or the puff I should say, does feel more bouncy and a little bit thicker than the L'Oreal one, so I did enjoy this puff. I didn't find that it was as streaky, and I didn't find that it was as aggressive when you were applying it onto the skin. It did tend to apply and spread the foundation evenly, so I was very, very happy with this cushion. Now this one is interesting. This finish is a very dewy finish, and I would say that it would look a little bit greasy if you left it unpowdered. So I don't think that it would be oil controlling on its own. This is actually one that I tested out without trying it without powder. It looks really beautiful. The skin looks healthy. If that's your vibe, I think you would really enjoy that. But if it's not your vibe and you do have to powder your face down, it does powder down really nicely. The powder does not like soak up the foundation or like bunch it up or cake it up onto the skin. It actually looks really, really lovely. And if you want something that can still look slightly like a sheen, a little bit more natural, but you still have powder on, you can achieve that look with this one. Now, as far as the finish goes, I would call this a true medium finish. You can still slightly see my acne spots, my hyperpigmentation and stuff on the tops of my cheeks and on the skin in general. I only have to go in with like my standard amount of concealer in order to get this to a finish where I really like it. Maybe it looks like it has more coverage than something like the L'Oreal one because it is more dewy. Now, whenever you do have more of a dewy finish, the light reflects off of that hydration, so you're not able to see every little detail, every little hyperpigmentation spot and freckle like you may see with something that is more matte. So I do want to point that out, but with the coverage and the finish in mind, it does have more coverage than the L'Oreal one. So after applying this with the full face of makeup, I did think that my makeup looked really comparable to what I normally would do with my skin. If anything, it just looked like a regular dewy foundation on the skin, and it didn't feel heavy, it didn't feel cakey, it didn't feel like I was wearing something super greasy either. Sometimes with something like a skin tint where it is more dewy of a finish, it can feel a little bit heavy underneath a lot of powders and stuff, but I did not find that to be the case with this one. So at the end of the day, I did produce more oils specifically in my T-zone, but the foundation itself I found was sitting really well, and it wasn't caking, it wasn't sliding around on the face. My chin, my upper lip, and my nose did not look bad. It did not look textured. It did fade a little bit around my nose though, but it didn't pool or sink into the nose area, which is a very common thing for me when it comes to foundations, especially ones that aren't more matte. It almost looked like the foundation kind of faded away. It didn't seem to move or transfer anywhere else. I'm not quite sure like what happened, but it didn't look terrible, but it definitely does tend to move around, and I think that's kind of the nature of the finish as well. So knowing that, since doing that wear test and wearing this several other times, I have powdered it down more, and I still do get oily, and I do feel like this could really be aided by an oil controlling primer and a setting spray. I think that's like a good combination if you want this to last even longer. It's not going to be the longest wearing cushion foundation though. I do think it gives me really good wear throughout like a regular work day, 6 to 8 hours, but I don't think that it's going to be something that can withstand a whole 12 hours without looking like it's faded or, you know, my oils have kind of eaten it up. I do, however, think that if you were to kind of blot throughout the day, and this goes with really any foundation if you are oily, but if you are like blotting throughout the day just to keep your oils at bay, then I do think that you can prolong the wear of something like this. But overall, this one, really pretty, beautiful packaging, really beautiful formula and finish, and surprisingly did way better than I anticipated. Unfortunately, I did not have the highest hopes for this one, but I was not let down by it. I think it's a really good option. Okay, and lastly, our luxury cushion foundation, YSL cushion foundation in MN7. I thought this was going to be my perfect match, you guys. I swatched it in stores and then I purchased it. It is a little bit off, and I will say, you guys, I had really high expectations for this one, probably more than the L'Oreal and the Makeup Revolution one, because this is extremely expensive and you're not getting a full 1 ounce. Like, that's just the reality of cushion foundations, you do not get as much. So keeping that in mind, with the price point, I was like, okay, this better be the best cushion foundation I've ever tried. Now, I do want to preface and let you guys know that the first day I mistakenly started testing out a new mineral sunscreen, and I had this underneath. I wear sunscreen under all of my makeup all the time. I will say this first day I saw a lot of pilling. I did note that for this cushion foundation, but you guys will see from day 2, I definitely think that a lot of it had to do with the mineral sunscreen. So I just wanted to let you guys know. Cute, cute packaging. I mean, we expect nothing less from YSL. You know, it has that quilted soft packaging right there with the gold around it. You have your standard puff right here, and then our door, and then the cushion foundation. And of course, this part where I blot right there. So this puff is another one that is quite flat. It really reminds me of the L'Oreal one actually, and I cannot pinpoint which one is flatter, but I will say I don't like either. Both of them are really flat, and it feels like you're slapping your skin, and it does not blend out the foundation by itself. You have to go in with a sponge or brush or something to further blend it in so you don't have any demarcation lines. It picks up a lot of product, I will say, but it doesn't blend it well. So I tried to really push it in, really dab it into that door right there so I didn't get an excess amount of product. Now, upon application, this formula, it does seem a little bit more wet and less matte than something like the L'Oreal Cushion Foundation. So the product seems to spread farther on the skin as you're applying it, but I would still suggest that you apply it in sections. Don't just dot and then blend it. Really work in sections, really blend that in, and then go in with a separate sponge or brush or whatever you need to do. It does seem like the product can go farther than something like the L'Oreal one, so that's a plus. As far as the coverage, I would say that this is a medium to full coverage on me. It does seem to crease a little bit at the nose, so make sure to kind of like stamp that out before setting it with powder. I was noticing it crease there before finishing my full face of makeup and putting my powder on. So really make sure that you have this blended out onto the skin nicely. And I found that after applying it, it did look slightly drier. It did look more made up, if that makes sense. Like there are cushion foundations that just look like skin, and there's like cushion foundations that look like makeup. Not a bad thing, but this definitely falls into the looks like makeup portion of it. But I will say the longer that this wears on the skin, it looks better, but it's not flawless. So we'll get into that. I did use a loose and finishing powder with this the first day. From far away, it looked really good. From close up, it did look a little bit textured, and it did look a little cakey. Like it definitely looked like this foundation was sitting on top of the skin for me. Okay, so now going into the wear test, I did try to do several wear test check-ins. So at the 3-hour mark, stay with me here, it looked powdery but also oily at the same time. Like it looked heavy around my T-zone and very obvious again on my chin and my upper lip. So I was not too excited or happy about that part. And then at night, it looked very heavy on the bottom half of my face, which was really disappointing. And then at the very end of the day, I did notice that the oil control was really great, but I did have some significant separation on my chin, and then it looked heavy on my upper lip again. Not as bad as the L'Oreal one, but it still didn't look great for me. It felt like it was kind of sitting again versus like absorbing, or like my oils were coming through. Not great for everyday use, I would say, but if you need makeup to look like makeup, and you'll probably understand when you need that, then I think this might be an okay one, but I'm kind of on the fence because of day 2. So day 2, because I did wear a mineral sunscreen on the first day and I felt like it pilled, I did use a chemical sunscreen on this day, and I let it fully absorb before doing any of my makeup. I do think that this formula takes a really long time to blend into the skin, especially with this puff. Because I went in with a chemical sunscreen, I do think that this looked a lot better in the hairline, especially in the hairline where I had a lot of pilling that first day, but I still think that on my chin and my upper lip, it was still sitting slightly heavier. Now on this day, it was the day before my birthday, I believe. So we went to happy hour, we sat outside. I don't know why we decided to do that. Actually, they were doing renovations on the inside of the restaurant. So we sat outside in a tent with like lots of fans. Like it was not super hot, but I definitely was sweating a little bit. This foundation looked so bad, you guys, with my sweat. I was very insecure about how my makeup looked. It looked porous. It looked like it was bunching. It looked like my makeup was getting eaten up by the sweat and the oil. It just did not look great. And then I tried to blot it down and it kind of just looked bad. Like it looked patchy and it didn't look like I freshly powdered my face. It didn't look like I freshly touched up my face. It just sat so horribly. Maybe this is not meant to be sweat resistant or, you know, humidity proof or whatever, but in my climate, I need something that is, you know? So at the end of the day, on the second day, I did realize that it was not just the mineral sunscreen that made this kind of sit heavy and pill. I do think that it is the formula. The oil control itself is really great, especially because we ate outside. We were outside for a couple of hours. So my oils could have been way worse. I will give it that. And I was only really oily at the T-zone, but I did hate the way it looked on the chin and the upper lip. I couldn't get over that. When I blotted it down, it did look fine, but it looked like my makeup just wasn't as flawless as, you know, it could be after blotting. If you looked up close, it did not look great, but if you were like far away, it probably looked fine, but I just was not comfortable like with how this looked at the end of the day. So overall, I was not a fan of this one. I'm not a fan of this one. I have tried this a few more times and I don't know. I can't figure out how to get it to work. I've tried to go in with super thin layers, let it completely dry and then go in with more. I've tried to do less. You guys let me know if you've tried this, what your thoughts are. Give me tips if you have any, because I really do not want this to go to waste. I really want to use this. So those were my wear tests, my reviews and everything of the brand new Western cushion foundations. Now the question is, did these cushion foundations beat my Asian cushion foundations? The answer is no. I think that's pretty obvious. Now, let's talk about the pros and the cons. The shade matches were way better. Even though they were slightly off, it was a lot easier for me to pick a shade, first of all, because I could like see them in person. And also there's just more that seemed to match with, you know, the Western demographic. But also it just makes more sense in terms of shades because they are catering to a completely different demographic than they are in Japan and Korea and stuff. To me, these felt like more traditional liquid foundations versus what we expect to see in a cushion foundation. So like I said at the beginning, they're meant to be thinner, more serum-y, very thin formulas. These, in my opinion, still felt like a regular liquid foundation that they used a sponge to soak up, you know? I mean, they were thinner, maybe more sheer, but it didn't feel like skincare. Like it didn't feel like a makeup product that also had skincare that helped it sit on the skin better. I just could not get over the fact that these like dried down really quickly and they ended up emphasizing the crap out of my texture, and that's not something I'm used to seeing with a lot of regular foundations, let alone cushion foundations. None of them really withstood my oils the same way that the Aspire and the Tier tend to do. The Makeup Revolution, I will say, did the best out of all of them, which I'm very happy about because it is the more affordable one. At the end of the day, I probably wouldn't reach for these over my regular cushion foundations. They are not ones that I can apply without even thinking about. If anything, like I said, I could see myself wearing these if I had to have makeup that looked like makeup, something that's camera ready, something that is stage ready, something that will withstand the heat and humidity, you know what I mean? From far away, it'll look good, but up close, like maybe don't look so closely. All right, you guys, those were all of my thoughts. Those were all of my experiences. Please let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are, especially if you've tried these out. I've heard really great things about all of them, so I kind of feel like I'm an outlier here. So please let me know if you have any tips, any tricks, if you share any of the same sentiments as me. Until next time, you guys, I'm gonna leave a video right here that YouTube thinks you'll be interested in based on what you've been watching. And I hope you guys take care of yourselves, and I will see you very soon. Bye.